Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hotel Marketing Live Show. It's been, I think, 2 months since we last had these shows. Well, I've been busy moving and settling in here in Dubai. So break. It's nice to be back here with the first comeback episode with Kirsten. How are you, Kirsten?
I'm great, and it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's so today's topic is, well, since Kirsten is here, it's HR focused. So interestingly enough, over the past few weeks, we had quite a few conversations, right, Kirsten, where we were saying and talking about things that are happening in the hotel space here back in the Middle East, and we were talking about you know different things that are not maybe amazing, right? High turnover, teams that might not work amazingly well together, people that are not as trained as they should be. So you raised a very valid point. You said at some point, I remember when you said, well, this is actually an HR problem, so it's not a marketing problem, which makes you think that sometimes you might have some marketing issues, but the problem is actually an HR problem rather than a marketing competence issue, right? So, Kirsten, you host the AMA Ask Me Anything session on human resources on the hotel marketing space. So maybe we can talk about the type of questions that you are happy to answer, right? Marketers can book a 1 hour session with you, all things human resources. So maybe would you like to introduce your AMA session? What kind of topics do you like to cover in that session, or you're happy to cover?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you think about your team, think about your worst performer. What can you do about that? Maybe you have a team that's struggling, the outcomes that you're getting with the marketing. You feel like the effectiveness, efficiency isn't there. That's a people strategy, human resources. And so the kinds of things that I can help you with are really anything related to your people resources. So people strategies. So how can I gain some productivity on the team? How about if I'm sure that you're spending a lot on your marketing and you want that to be effective. And once you get guests into the hotel, what's the experience that they're having? If it's less than you'd like it to be, there are human resource strategies that can help you up and wow your guests when they arrive. So it's really just coming with, honestly, it might not even be questions because you're not sure why it's happening. And that's okay, because I can help you figure out why it's happening and then create those strategies. I always think about there's a gap. There's a gap in performance, behaviors, outcomes for your business. And so why does that gap exist? And then what do we do to diminish that gap so that you're getting the expectations that you have for your team are being met? So really, it's not specific questions. It's probably showing up saying, here is my frustration. Here's what's driving me crazy. I don't know what to do about it. And I'll help you figure it out.
No, you're very, very valid point, because you might not even have the questions, right?
Right.
You might, because you don't know what answers you're looking for. You touched on two very valid points. And one thing is that sometimes we tend to underestimate the importance of HR, of good HR, right? Yes, I know it's a cliche. We always say look after your team, but our teams really looked after, first of all, right? Uh, Something that we have a lot in the marketing space, we tend to say, yeah, we're not getting the right talent. I hear this all the time, right? And sometimes it breaks my heart, because, well, you might not have a genius, and honestly, why should you even look for marketing genius? And there is no such thing. Why not train the people that you have? Why not actually, hire the candidates really for their character, their attitude, their passion, their enthusiasm, and then train them? And that I see as an HR thing. Would you not agree?
Oh, 100%. There are absolutely people strategies or human resource strategies all around hiring. And it doesn't, again, with all things, it doesn't just start with the hiring, because, you need to think about, again, what are the personalities and behavior types that are going to create your guest experiences? And so, and then how do you identify if a candidate has those? Do they want to do that job? And can they? So do they have the attitude and the aptitude to do well? And it's through good selection strategies that you can determine that. that. And there are great ways to sift through candidates quickly if you're getting a lot of candidates to really get more towards your ideal candidates. And there are specific questions to use that help you determine, is this person going to be a fit? And again, it's both of skill set and behavior and personality, and all of those things are important.
This is very fascinating because one thing I know for sure as a former director of marketing is that marketers are not trained in HR, right? Because it's easy if we say we just leave it to the human resources team. Since we most of the time it's the marketing director that screens and interviews the junior marketers, right? And sometimes they're also interviewed by HR, but not always, interestingly enough, not always, right, in hotels. So maybe also marketers need to be trained in HR.
Absolutely. And I think it's always really important to include your directors of the department, at least in a portion of that strategy, the hiring strategy, the selection strategy, so that they can have some input. So yeah, you want your marketing team, managers, supervisors, directors to at least have some basic skills and coordinate with your human resource department so that they get to participate and start to have a good eye for what to look for during the interview and great questions to ask.
No, absolutely. So this is maybe something, point number one is that you need to train your marketing directors in HR. I wasn't trained and I was the one always interviewing, right? And sometimes candidates would also be interviewed by HR, but usually it would only be for at the very end. We're talking like really the fine print of the contract, right?
Yes.
Rather than really screening candidates. Yeah. So there'll be the very final candidates already approved by everyone, and then they will go through HR just to make sure that they understood how much they would get and what their benefits are.
Right. That offer. Yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's not always optimal. You know, something that I was thinking about just a moment ago before our call, I was thinking about previous teams that I was managing and how important it was that they would all get along very well, right? Something that I think would be useful, and I only had it at one property in my whole career, is the personality test. Yeah. Are you for or against personality tests when hiring?
So there's pros and cons to personality tests. I like them as part of the toolbox that you use. I just sometimes organizations put all their eggs in that one basket, and then so I think if you can use it for sure to add additional information to the decisions that you're making. Yep.
So you would not rely that much on personalities. That's what if you have an amazing candidate, someone who like ticks all the boxes, CV wise, right? Has the experience you're looking for, the skill sets you're looking for, maybe the languages and so on. But the personality test says this person would clash with others in the team. What would you do there?
Well, so behavioral based interviewing is what I recommend in terms of crafting questions that you ask. And so again, I would pair that with all the other information. I mean, that is absolutely, don't discount what that personality test tells you, but also using good behavioral based interviewing questions will give you insight to how they have behaved specifically in the past. I would also do, you also want to talk to former team members that they've worked with or their employer or manager, et cetera, to get a feel. Again, so sometimes those personality tests, people do behave, they've learned to overcome some of their innate personality tendencies in the organization. And maybe it's not the hiccup that it seems from the test. So again, important information, but like include it with all the other data that you've collected. So it's not an automatic no, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, because I know some hiring managers find it very important, right? Like personality tests, and others think, no, it's just a silly test. It doesn't mean anything. But I like your answer, which is a very balanced answer, very diplomatic answer. Yes,
Yeah.
use tests, but don't just put all your eggs in that basket, which is a very valid point. Which brings us still in the topic of teams, because I am a massive believer in teamwork, right? I mean, if the team doesn't function, you're not going anywhere, right? Sometimes you feel there's a bit of competition or maybe some envy. Why did this person get a promotion, or why is this person getting the better, tasks, the better, yeah. And these are not easy to solve, right? To deal with. So what works here to, let's say, these frictions? How do you deal with these frictions? Like this, sometimes you always have a little bit of competition, but sometimes it's positive competition, sometimes it's negative competition. How do you deal with these team building events, or what would you recommend?
Yeah. Also, as a leader, I'm going to give a specific tip here, but as a leader, often unintentionally, we are going to our teams only when there's a new task or a problem has come up. And so and it just makes sense. We're task oriented. We need to get a lot done. We're busy. But what happens is we forget to say those thank yous, show appreciation, etc. And I believe that humans have an innate desire to feel known, acknowledged, and appreciated. And so here's a quick little people resource tip that I would say: add it to your calendar so that it comes top of mind to seek out the opportunities to say thank you for your team or great job. I find that friction escalates when thank yous are not abundant. So now they're fighting and there's friction between one person gets a tiny little accolade and the rest of the team is feeling, what about me? And so that is one quick tip. But beyond that, also, yes, team building exercises. Make sure that the people on the team have good assertive communication strategies in their tool belt so that when there are disagreements, they can have healthy conflict. Everyone's not going to agree on the like what direction do we want to take, et cetera. And so make sure that they have something in their tool belt where they can talk through where they have differing opinions or perspectives. I would also say having those good help the team. Part of team building can be creating great, efficient processes. When processes are failing, there's friction because we humans tend to blame one another when things are going awry. And so help the team come together to create those great processes and build in enough time so that each step of the process in the marketing can happen well. So that's a couple of quick things around friction.
Oh, these are amazing points, and reminded me of a few things. So sometimes when times are tough, we've all been like through pandemic, times are tough, and then people say, well, we don't have time for team building events, or we're not in the mood. And I personally think you don't have to be in the mood for team building events. They need to happen regardless of how bad times are, right? Sometimes, of course, yeah, I understand that you might not be in the mood to celebrate, but at least to have, I don't know, coffee together somewhere new. It doesn't have to be big, but I'm a massive believer in team events, no matter how small.
Well,
let me that way. Yeah.
Let me give some motivation. A lot of times when things are going awry on the team, friction is building. As a leader, we just feel frustrated. Why can't everyone get along? Why isn't the work just getting done? Just come and do your job. When I delegate, follow through. And you are actually missing more than your mood when friction is rising. On average,
then it's too late, right?
Yeah, studies show that that we actually companies lose roughly 2.5 hours per week per employee to team drama. So if you start doing the math, you will be motivated to make sure that the team is coming together. And what I love about team building, beyond the exercises that you're doing, the time together, and like you said, even if it's just having coffee together, and we have a lot of remote teams right now too. We need to build in that time to connect. I call them trust buckets. We need to have full trust buckets with one another so that when things go awry, we give grace, or we're not saying like, they're making my job harder. I don't know that person. I don't trust that person. So we tend to say like, they're making my job harder. They're not doing any work over there. They're trying to dump it back on us. All those things that happen when trust buckets are full, that doesn't happen. And, we have a better understanding. Oh, there's a human over there that also cares about the mission, like what we're trying to make happen. And so anyway, so if you're not feeling motivated to have those team building opportunities, we'll just call it, do the math. take the hourly rates of the employees times 2.5. And then remember, that's only 1 week. So then times it times 52.
Yeah, and then when the drama really escalates, then people leave, and sometimes it's a shame, right? I think it's always a shame when people leave because they didn't fit in the. So I remember once in a big commercial department and there were a couple of people who didn't fit in the department, right? I remember one person who then at some point left because he didn't really feel that he was part of the department, right? And yes, it's true that his personality did clash with others, right? But we all have different personalities, and I think there's always a way to make it work. I mean, unless someone is dishonest or unfair or right. Other than that, I do believe you should give everyone a chance to fit in. You know, it's a lot of work.
So, right. Well, so hopefully during the selection process, you've identified whether or not that personality is going to fit. The ultimate
What if
goal
you
is,
didn't identify?
but if you didn't, yes, you need. So in this, again, I always like to use kind of illustrations. You have invested a lot in bringing that person onto your team. You know, there was the time that you took, you know, and if you paid a recruiter or even if you just posted the job, there's the time that your team spent in sifting through candidates and going through the selection process. And then you've brought them onto your team and you've done onboarding and you're paying them during the training, because even if they came with a great skill set, they had to learn how you do things. And so there's been a big investment in that person by the time that they're really struggling or the team is struggling to acclimate them. And so, yeah, you want to make sure, I always say, give the person the opportunity to be successful. So make sure, and there are people strategies around this, but making sure that there are clear expectations and the opportunity, you know, is your onboarding good? You know, did they miss the opportunity to gain some of the internal knowledge that they need? So have the conversations, ask the questions of that person and the team, like, why are things going awry? I tell you, if your onboarding is clunky, that creates a lot of friction. That person is uncomfortable. If you just throw them into the pond and say swim, you know, if you have a question, just ask one of your team members. Well, 4 months down the road and your team is thinking, why are they still asking questions? Well, it's because their onboarding, their training has had holes in it like Swiss cheese. And there are still things coming up that, you know, they haven't had the opportunity to learn because it didn't just happen. And so now they're still asking questions versus having structure to your onboarding where you know what they've been trained on. You've carved out time for that. Someone can make sure that they're taking on the skills, they know them. Now you know what you can hold them accountable for. So again, a good human resource strategy is have that good onboarding. And now you can answer the question, you know, is this a team problem? Is this the employee problem? You know, are they getting it? You know, are they moving through the learning curve like they should be, or are they struggling? And you need to take a look and make sure that the onboarding is not what's causing their struggle.
I love that you mentioned onboarding because I think one cannot stress it enough how important the onboarding process is. And no matter how much workload there is, right? And yes, hotels are understaffed, there's a lot of work to do, but just to throw someone in and to expect this person to come up with an amazing marketing campaign within the first weekend to get results doesn't really work. So the first couple of weeks, maybe the first month, right? You take it easy, right? No matter how much work and pressure you have, this person will not come up with a Nobel Prize winning marketing campaign in the first week. There's no way it's happening, right? So this is something we do see in the hotel space. Expectations are super ridiculously high, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes also from maybe like junior marketers, right? That might just be their second hotel. Maybe it's even their first hotel, right? So onboarding is critical because they need to understand even how a hotel functions, right? It's not just about understanding how the company functions, how that team functions, but what it means to work in a hotel, right? Because they didn't learn it at university. So, right?
Yeah. And I was just going to say there are simple ways that don't take a lot of time to add just that touch of structure that you need to really ramp up your onboarding. I was going to tell it just, I have a client right now that a couple of years ago had no onboarding strategy. And there were a couple of employees who were struggling. And so I helped them realize you didn't do any onboarding and we don't know if they should know. There's no way to know. So literally they use some simple strategies to implement structure. And I will tell you, I was just meeting with that CEO last week, and they're onboarding 3 people at the same time, which this is a smaller organization. So anyway, she was sharing how grateful she was that they had that bit of structure, because all 3 of the people are like, this is amazing, and really it did not take as much time as you would think.
No, but it's good to know that you also offer this also as a service. If a hotel were to say, I'm not sure how to do my onboarding or to structure the onboarding, it's good to know that you are here to help. We got a question from Dylan or a comment. I think the door to ask questions should always be left open, so workers will always be comfortable learning their position workplace even better. You want to take that comment?
Yes, Dylan, that is a great question. I'm so glad that you brought it up, because as part of the onboarding, so there are the ad hoc questions where, like, go to a coworker if something comes up, but also sometimes the question isn't necessarily an emergency. So as the leader, whoever is in charge of that person's onboarding, make sure that you set aside meeting time so that they can come to you. So they're not having to just ad hoc go to coworkers, interrupt their work to ask their questions. If it's an emergency, make sure, come to me or any of your coworkers if something comes up where you need immediate attention. However, collect your questions and we'll be meeting. And, depending on the complexity of the job, you might meet with them daily for 15 minutes, but just so they know they have a place that's structured, a little bit of structure to the onboarding where they can collect those questions and come and sit down. And now they have time, not just the what or the how, like how to do it, but why, because that helps people retain the information. Now it's more, you're not like running and trying to take care of a guest or a snafu or some kind of marketing strategy. You can sit down and have that one-on-one and concentrate to ask the question and get the full answer. So thank you, Dylan, for that. Yep.
So Dylan is a general manager in the US. So it's good to see that he has this question on onboarding. Now, training is not only at the very start, right? And I'm a massive believer in the importance of training. No matter how senior you are in hotel marketing, you still need training, right? And sometimes it's costly if you were to do it all on your own, right? So it's important that the hotel, right, invests in training. Do you have any like magic rule on how often to do trainings? Because you also don't want to spend 24/7 in your trainings, right?
Right. No, again, it varies so much by industry and type of job and level of job and the organization and all of that. I will just say invest in your people. It's another way for them to feel valued, and you get the value of that training. This, though, kind of moves me towards the topic of performance management. It's not performance review. I think performance management, and again, this is so important. People also, another innate desire is they want to feel like they're doing a good job. So make sure that you're giving good ongoing feedback for your team, both again and saying thank you or great job or man, you really rocked that out, but also the constructive feedback. There was a gap, and creating the plan that they need to help them get to where they need to be so they can rock it out for your business. And so training, I love performance improvement plans. So sometimes those are kind of considered as a consequence, but I'm a huge proponent because ultimately all that document is saying is, here we're going to invest in some movement forward in your performance. And it could be from that you're a rock star, but we're preparing you for the next level. And so having those conversations with your rock stars too, of what is the next step, which part of marketing do you want to focus on, what are some skills that you would like to build, and planning that in, and then helping them figure out, is it an online webinar, are they going to travel to a conference, do they need to become a member of an association of some sort, do they need to just get to participate in some meetings so they have the experience within your organization, or shadow someone. There are so many ways that we can build experiences and knowledge within our team. So ask the questions about where they would like their career to go, and then also what fits in your business. That's part of succession planning, another people strategy. But anyway, I kind of brought up people strategies that are important.
It's super important, because something that as a previous hotel marketer, well, I'm still a hotel marketer, but not in hotels, so I can tell you that in hotel marketing, it's kind of interesting, because you always reach there's a ceiling, there's a plateau, right? So if you do the right way, you go from like a marketing coordinator, executive manager, director, and then that's pretty much it for most people, 90% of people, right? Because to become, like, let's say, commercial director, usually they take people from sales, right? It's very difficult that the director of marketing is then seen as a potential general manager, people from operations. So in hotel marketing, it's always a bit critical, right? You don't see a future. You rarely see a future unless you move into corporate office and so on. So I don't want to now bore you with the details, but to say that there is a ceiling, yeah. And I personally think it is important to show, as you said, we're preparing you for the next step, but what is this next step? I think that's critical for the people's performance, right? And you feel motivated. You say, okay, so now I'm director of marketing. There is something more coming after that, right? Well, in my case, it was, okay, I'll exit the industry and open my own business. But you don't want everyone
no.
to exit the industry and open their own business. But this is exactly what's happening. Exactly
right. And you don't want to lose that bank of knowledge. So ultimately they can be a great asset. And if they are interested in moving to, like you said, the operations side, et cetera. But again, there's going to be a knowledge and experience gap. So if that is a desire of your head marketing person to keep them as a valuable asset on your team, what are some next steps, and help them see the vision for that, and then create the steps and implement the steps that will get them prepared to move into those other areas. Yep.
A massive gap in the industry. Or here we're talking specifically about hotel marketing, right? So, and then we can enter into other topics such as gender discrimination and so on. But these, they're general, not only for hotel marketing. So I love that you touched that. The other thing that you also touched upon, which is very, very key, when you mentioned trainings, you also mentioned, for instance, traveling to a conference. Yes, it is expensive. Yes, you might think, do we really want to spend that kind of money? But networking is super important also for the hotel itself. When people know who your marketing people are, their network is valuable also for the hotel, right? It's not only for them, because they tend to think, okay, they will meet other people, they will then look for a new job. That is what a lot of people think, right? But not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. If they are appreciated and you invest in them, networking is key. Give them the opportunity, as you said, to be part, of business council, right? In name of your hotel, to represent your hotel. So there are many opportunities to give trainings aside from the former, like classroom training or online training, right? Networking opportunities also give a lot.
Yes. Back. Well, and those conferences, they're immersing themselves in the content and then being around others who, just learning from one another, bouncing ideas off, and the networking. It's a really re-energizing, rejuvenating time, and also heavy skill building of building that inspiration and knowledge base for sure.
No matter how junior one is, because we tend to think that conferences and so on are just for senior people. There are also conferences that that are not just for the top CEOs, right? And to start giving the junior markets also the opportunity to, to network with others and go to these events is important. Kirsten, some closing remarks?
Well, I would just say, we've covered a lot of topics. And again, you don't need to figure out which of those you need to implement to fix the frustrations that you're having. I can help you do that. So just come with the frustrations and we will likely talk onboarding, team building, performance management, compensation, building that high performing team. There are specific strategies. So I would love to help anyone who's having any kind of frustration or struggle with the team. Grab one of those spots, the ask me anything. And it really does mean ask me anything. You don't have to come with specific questions. I'm just here to help and we can figure it out.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Kirsten. And thank you everyone for watching. So we will upload this on our YouTube channel, which is called Hotel Marketing Space. Nothing so original. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Hotel Marketing Live Show. Thank you and bye for now.
Bye.